All right, guys. So this is Ignite Spark session number 8. And today we're going to be talking about finding seller leads. So this is something that's very close and dear to me simply because when I was a solo agent, I sold a lot of listings. And the truth of the matter is when the focus here while you're in real estate is to get a commission check, right? And to get a commission check, you need to sell a house. And in order to sell a house, you need to have leads. So the number of commission checks you get is directly related to the number of leads that you have. So if we want to have a lot of commissions, then we have to have a lot of conversations, which means we have to have a lot of leads, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So like always, when we do these Ignite series, I do want to talk to you guys about what successful agents do every single day, just more as a reminder. They do two different things, just two. They do the activities to grow their business and they do the activities to run their business, right? Growing their business should be 80% of the time that you spend in your business. 20% can be running the business. So we're focusing on number one, lead generation for buyers and sellers, which is the next slide, right? Lead generate for buyers and sellers. Okay, so the first section we're going to cover is understanding motivation. Oh, first of all, this first slide, I wasn't expecting this one. So compliance, do not call list. So anytime when you're talking about leads, you're going to hear about the do not call list. And the do not call list, I've only known one person in the 23 years that I've been doing this that has actually received a fine from a do not call list. And I remember asking her how much it was. I mean, I think that they fined her like $50,000, but she negotiated out $5,000. And she was always very heavy on calling expired listings and for sale by owners and telephone prospecting. And so what she said to me is that the amount of money that she had made off of the activities greatly dwarfs the amount of the fine that she ended up getting. Right now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm condoning that you should do something to go against the do not call registry. Because me personally, I don't think that if I put my number on a list, that means I don't want to be called. There's other ways of doing things in 2021, but if you do choose the phone, then you just have to educate yourself on the do not call list. So we just chimed someone in. Let's see. Hold on, guys. Bear with me for a second. I'm closing down some screens here because my machine's going a little slow. Can everybody hear me? Will someone chime in and let me know? Because I can't see anyone and can't hear anyone.
We can hear you, Brett.
All right, cool. Thank you. Now, why can't I see anyone? Usually I can see people. Let me close this. Oh, there we are. Okay, found you guys. So for those of you that are feeling comfortable enough to go on video, that would be greatly appreciated so I can kind of see who I'm talking to. Anyways, if you're going to make phone calls, then just make sure that you're in compliance. Just make sure that you guys know that the rules out there for the do not call list. Okay, finding seller leads. Where do we find our seller leads? Anyone want to kind of chime in on this? Where do we find seller leads? I just gave you one. Number one is your database. Number two is your daily 10-4, open houses, which are non-existent, and referrals. So these are the four core areas that you can actually get your database, or you can find seller leads. So as we look at this, we all know that the number one job to generate or in business is to generate leads. And so that really what the number one job is really to build your database. Now, who here knows somebody or knows of somebody that it seems like all they have to do is go to bed at night, wake up in the morning, and all of a sudden they just get a ton of business? Anyone know that? Russell, do you know anyone like that?
I do.
Okay, so I make fun of who does? Who said that?
Me.
Matt, you know someone who it seems like all they do is just go to bed, wake up, and they just get a ton of business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's because they have a database.
Yeah.
So the thing we got to do with our database is we got to feed our database and we got to grow our database. Now, your database breaks down into two specific areas, right? You have kind of what your acquaintances are. These are people who uh, maybe they don't know you're in real estate, or if they do know you're in real estate, they really don't care. These are people that you, by chance, you run into. You know, those people that like on leap year at the grocery store for whatever reason, you always run into this person, right? And they're not in your CRM. So those are acquaintances, but we want to get them into your database. And the database are people that see your services. Well, number one, they know that you're in real estate. Um, they know you. They know you're in real estate. They like you. They trust you, right? So that's your database. And so the key to being that person. Now, I just want to let you guys know. I always make fun. I play with Dale Shima when when we're on roll. But this guy, I really genuinely think that he goes to bed, he wakes up, and that's how he gets business. But he's been doing this for 35 years, and he's been building his database for this whole long. And you guys have heard me say that the best time to plant a tree was 40 years ago or today. So you guys can start building out your database and actually start growing your business by looking at things from a long-term perspective, right? Any questions on that? I want to make this interactive. I want to make this more of a Q&A and kind of a workshop program.
Hey, Brett, I just
Russell, go ahead.
I had a quick question about the fee that you said if they're on the do not call. So like we use Mojo. So how do you know which one's on a do not call list?
You know, I'm really glad that you brought that up. If you're using Mojo or any other popular dialer, they scrub those numbers for you against their database. So you're solid.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're dialing for dollars and you're just calling through the phone book, then you're probably not going to call enough people to actually get someone like really, really angry at you. But if you do come across someone that says, hey, look, I'm on the do not call list, don't call them and say, look, I'm sorry. I'll take you off my list. You know, if someone doesn't want to talk to you, you don't want to force yourself on talking to them. You know, so a lot of you guys know that I role play every morning. And I was talking to the inside sales agent that works with me on cold outreach with agents. And we were role playing out a scenario where it's like, you know, someone was combative. They just didn't want to talk to you. And if you're going to make phone calls and you're going to prospect, that's going to happen, and just move on, right? If they don't want to talk to you, that's good, because I don't want to talk to someone who doesn't want to talk to me. And if they're going to be a jerk about it, you know, I have a rule when we actually hire people into this office, I don't work with jerks. So, you know, it's a personality problem, but going back to the database, you just got to make sure that, you know, the key is to grow it. Now, daily 10-4. Does anyone know what the daily 10-4 is? Anyone? Okay. Number one is it's all about growing your database. Okay. Talking to 10 new people a day, following up, adding 10 new people to your database a day, and previewing 10 properties a week. Okay. So the key here is that those activities are meant to grow your database. Now, Matt and I were talking on the phone before I got onto this, and who here knows who their ideal client is? Has anyone really kind of dove into that yet? Before you guys can do anything, you really, really got to get laser focused on who you're going to be servicing. The worst thing that anybody can do is to be everything to everybody, everywhere, and all the time, which is what most real estate agents do, right? Their phone rings. They got someone who wants to buy a house in Ventura. Yeah, I can be there in 2 hours. You got to really get hyper focused on who you're working with and where they're at. And that's why I always talk about doing your primary market area. Because if you're going to go and preview properties, you're going to want to preview properties in the market that you area, right? If you're going to focus, like what I was talking to Matt about, he was talking about Newport or South Irvine. If you're going to work in that area, there's really no point in you going to preview properties in Tustin, right? Not from a growth standpoint. If we're looking to grow our business out long term and you have a vision of what you want to look at, you got to envision, kind of where you're at. So what I was talking to Matt about earlier is if I was going to go into production, I would focus on South Irvine. Why would I focus on South Irvine? I've lived in South Irvine. I've lived in North Irvine. I like South Irvine better. I like the price point there. And there's plenty of properties that are actually being sold there that if all I did was just do one a month, I mean, you're making a few $100,000 a year. Right. So, but you also have to look at who is the demographic there. And then you got to become the real estate agent that those type of people would want to work with. But as you build out your database, you want to build out a database with your people, right? These are people that like, and trust. Now, when we were all growing up and we were in grade school, they used to call those clicks. I don't know about, I was the guy that was friends with everybody. They called me Zach in the Marines from Saved by the Bell. I didn't like it back then. It's kind of funny now when I look back on it. So that's one way to grow your database, right? Just go out and preview properties. The next one is open houses. Well, that's not happening. No such thing as open houses. And I actually question how big the open houses are going to come back as a culture. I was talking to Stephen upstairs earlier today, and even though open houses is a very big primary source for buyer leads, if you're a listing agent and you really are wanting to do things in the best interest of the seller, is having a bunch of strangers any given day of the week coming and going through the house unchaperoned, is that really the best interest of the seller? Especially with all this modern day technology. You got videos, you got 3D tours. People can preview the property from the comfort of their own home. Now, if they're serious, they could schedule a private preview. Because if you guys were selling your house, would you want only serious buyers walking through your house? Right? Of course you would. But open houses, when they come back, that is a good source of seller leads, because a lot of times people who are looking to buy, they may have to sell a property. Not all the time, but there's a good amount. And then referrals. Now, here's the thing. Referrals ties directly into your database. So any person that you actually meet in an open house that you connect with that are looking to buy, or they're you kind of pre-qualify them, everything goes into your database. So when it says finding seller leads here, really all of these four little things that we see on the screen, it's 100% about growing your database. Okay. Any questions on that? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you guys got questions. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. Okay. So understanding motivation. Now we're going to talk about qualifying and converting seller leads. Here's the thing when it comes down to the sales cycle, right? If we look at the broad, let me I'm looking for, where is my driver? Okay. So if we look at the sales cycle of a listing agent, we have a lead, right? Now you have to have a conversation with people. You have a lead, and then you have to have a conversation with that lead, and that conversation needs about qualifying that lead, right? Now there has to be a criteria. Raise your hand if you want to go and show a bunch of houses to people who have no interest of buying a house. Okay. It's kind of a trick question. Okay. Raise your hand if you want to list a property that the seller has no intention of really caring. The only way they're going to sell it is if they get it for 20%, if they sell their home for 20% more, right, than what the market is. Okay. Now, what you guys have done is you guys have actually set some standards for yourself now. Now, I did some no-brainer scenarios there that it's like, yeah, duh, I'm not going to do that. But you really need to qualify every person that you're actually going to be working with. So here are some examples. Connecting questions. for some of you that have attended some of my role playing and my objection handling, the person who actually asks the question will always be the one who controls the conversation. So as you are actually talking to these leads and you're qualifying those leads, you have to have a two-way conversation. But what you can see here is that you have your who, what, where, why, when, and how. Now, the first thing you want to find out when you're actually talking to a lead is their why and their when. Don't go with the who, what, where, why, when, how, not in that order. You're not writing a newspaper article, right? The two, let me go back. I accidentally hit my, the two most important questions in here is why. Who can tell me? Russell, why do you think the why is most important?
You need to know the purpose.
You need to know the purpose. Why is knowing the purpose important, do you think?
Just to see if it's a qualified call and
Yeah.
if the conversation will go anywhere.
Okay. So for example, if you were talking to me and you said, hey, Brett, why are you wanting to move? And I said, I don't know. I don't really think so. I just think the market's doing great. And, just want to see what I can get for my house. Is that going to be a good indication? Is that going to give you a warm, fuzzy feeling?
No, because
Probably
what if you don't get the right price and they don't want to move eventually?
And I love the fact that you brought that up, because what I would say, oh, okay, so you want to just kind of test the market. So Russell, if you don't mind me asking, what would you do if it didn't sell? Well, I'm going to stay in this home then. Okay, so if you don't sell it for 50% more than what you bought it for, or 50% what it's worth, then you said that you'll just decide to stay there, right? So now you're pre-qualifying, because now you have a condition. This guy's saying that he wants to sell, but he only wants to sell if he gets like a ridiculous price that nobody's ever going to give him. And if he doesn't, he's just going to live in the house. So that's what you've done there, is you just, you disqualified that lead, right? So knowing their motivation, Russell, in that same scenario, if I said, you know what, Russell, I need to sell my home, and you ask me why, and say, well, I got a job transfer and I have to be in Arizona in 60 days. Does that change things for you?
Yeah, it's like a qualified seller.
It's a qualified seller. So knowing somebody's motivation is huge. That determining their motivation, but knowing when they need to move is going to gauge how serious they are, right? It's a temperature of the water. So they may have to move and do a job transfer. When do you have to move? I have 6 months. Okay, not so urgent. But if in fact they say 2 months, like that changes everything. It takes 45 days just to go in escrow, right? To finish an escrow. So the two most questions, if I was going to redo this, is connecting questions, is when you're talking to a lead. First thing is why, second one is when. And then what do you do? What's the focus on that, guys? What is the purpose of having a conversation with a lead? Anyone want to take a stab at that one?
Get a listing appointment with them right away.
Get a listing appointment. The only reason why you're going to be talking to a lead, your main objective, is to identify their why and their when, and then asking and then setting them up for a listing presentation. Okay, you're right. Thank you for answering that, Russell. But other questions that you need to ask as you're starting to go through the process, who, please tell me a little bit about your job and family life. Who are you working with? What are you looking for? What do you want to do? Like, assessing their wants and needs. The where is pinpointing their location. Where are you going to move to? Okay. Hey, Russell, if you sold this home and we did it really quick, where are you going to move to? Well, I just told you, I'm going to go to Arizona, right? Get a feeling for their timeline. When do you want to do this? We already talked about that. And assessing their expectations. How do you plan to do this? I love how questions. How questions are great. Because if you tell me, for instance, if you come to me and say, look, I would ask a question. Do you have an idea about how much you'd want to sell your home for? Well, I want to sell it for, I don't know, 20% more than the one that just sold. Okay. I understand that. And I understand where the market's at, but if you don't mind me asking, how do you expect anybody to be able to do that? How do you plan to do that? How questions are wonderful because there's no easy way out of them. You have to answer them. You have to answer them honestly. Right? So if there's anything you guys take away from this, so we've talked about leads, right? Generate leads. Let's go back to that for a second. And this is something that I was talking to Matt earlier today. Let's go, where to go? Okay. Find seller leads. Raise your hand if you think that these are the only 4 ways to generate seller leads in 2021. I'm glad. Now there's only three people with their, and I'm one of them, 2 people doing it, but I can tell you that there's a lot of different ways of generating leads. When I left Realogy several years ago, when I worked for them, for every 1 home that sold in the United States, there was 15 online leads generated. There's a 15 to 1. So I would say that there's not necessarily a lead issue as much as there's a conversion issue, right? Now, I don't know if every, one person went to 15 different websites and actually put their information in on how they calculated that. But leads are not hard to generate. Quality leads are hard to generate. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can actually generate leads. You can do it the old school route. You have the traditional ways of doing that. You can do telephone prospecting, circle prospecting. Big fan of it. It always works. Doesn't matter. I was teaching circle prospecting back when I was actually taught circle prospecting 23 years ago. And we're teaching the same stuff now. The difference is that technology is advanced more, caller ID is more efficient, and so fewer people answer the phones right now, right? But it still works if you work it, right? The other traditional sales activity, like what we see here, is open houses. Look, they work, but here's the thing is that you have to invest the time. It's an analog channel, right? You have to invest the time to do that, but it works. And the third one is door knocking. You can door knock around your circle prospecting. Go find a listing, go find something that just sold, and go knock the 10 doors across the street and the 5 doors to the left and the 5 doors to the right. There's 20 properties. You do that every single day, every day. Then you've done 100 properties in 1 week. That's 400 doors that you've knocked. You're going to have about 25 to 30. Well, actually, it's probably higher now, but traditionally you would have 25 to 30% of the people actually answer the door, right? So if you've had 400 people, then that means about 125, you'd have 125 conversations, and you are now meeting people within your sphere. But here's the thing, it will work. The thing is, it's an analog channel. So a lot of the training that is given to agents is really focused on traditional sales activities. But how do we use traditional sales activities in order to compete in a modern day society? So, Russ, I think that you told me, did you watch the interview I did with Fei Li? You did?
Yeah.
I know Matt said he did. Laura, were you able to get on that call with Fei Li? Duke, did you?
Yep.
All right. So here's the thing. Fei Li, for those of you that don't know Fei Li, he went from being a brand new real estate agent in December of 2018, in 2020, earning over $1 million in commissions in Southern California with just the power of video. That's it. He didn't knock on any doors. He didn't do any he did video. He did some open houses, but not in the traditional way of thinking. He didn't prospect. He didn't circle prospect. So what he chose to do is use a strategy of attracting people. Now, again, the best time to plant a tree was 40 years ago or today, right? He started doing a lot of these videos that generated him leads 5 years ago. But what can you do right now to start planting that seed so that you can have that? Look, you got social media, you got Google pay-per-click, you've got all these digital resources that can be used. And one of the strategies that I highly promote is, look, you got to get out there and preview property. You have to. You've got to get out there and know your market. You've got to know your inventory. You can't sell cars if you don't know what the car does, right? You got to know what it is that you're selling. And the only way that you can know to sell it is if you walk the streets. It's the only way. Like Matt just bought a new house in a neighborhood that was adjacent to the one that I used to live in, that I sold in, and I know his neighborhood because I walked it. If I didn't walk it, if I didn't know it, then I wouldn't know anything about it. All I would do is just be showing houses on the MLS. You have to do that. Now, here's the thing: if you take that contact, if you use your traditional sales activities and you use that to create content for your database, that is what's going to really be that snowball effect for you. But you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent with being consistent. So I got off on a tangent there. So let's kind of move on. We talked about the connecting questions, and now we're going to talk about the categories. So Keller Williams has this as how to rate your leads from A, B, and C, right? Now, I want you to look at this the way that I look at this. Hot, warm, cold. Okay, A, B, and C, hot, warm, cold. A hot lead is somebody who is ready, willing, and able to move within 0 to 14 days. Like they're giddy up. It's like, let's list this property. Let's get this sold. Let's get out there. Let's go find a house to buy. That's your hot prospects. These are the people who get your foremost attention, right? We have a 45-day minimum sales cycle, meaning that you have to go out and sell the house and then ink the deal. And then you have to wait 45 days to get through escrow and close. If it's a loan, if it's a cash deal, you can do it a lot quicker. But if it's a loan, you're looking 45 days, especially in this environment. A warm lead. They're able, ready, and willing to do business within the next 15 to 60 days, right? Time frame. Now, typically when you're looking at warm, there's some sort of condition tied to why they have to wait. It could be that maybe their lease is expiring, maybe their job doesn't start for something, another time. Typically, if you've run your pre-qualifications, these are the people who are ready, willing, and able and just doing it right now. Typically the warmer ones, there's some sort of condition on it. Now, the condition that we just gone through in 2020, the most common objections that I would always get with real estate agents. Now, talking with real estate agents, talking with sellers, it's the same thing. We're always talking about moving, right? Nobody wants to move. Everyone wants to talk about it next year, or they want to wait until COVID passes, or they want to do this, or they want to wait until, whatever, input the reason. But typically that's where the warm lead comes in. And then C, the cold leads, they're able, ready, and willing to do business in 61 days or more, right? So we got 2 weeks. We got two weeks to 2 months, right? Up to 2 months, and then 2 months or greater. Now then you just have your regular database, but these are your actually leads. These are people who've raised their hand, they've responded, they have a need, you've talked to them, you know their why, you know their when. This is the database. Most of your energy needs to go into the hot, then you just nurture your warm and cold. Any questions on that?
Brett,
Go ahead,
is
Russell.
the slide still the same one from when you first started, or did you move the slides?
Did I move the slides? You mean me? Like the order?
Yeah, because right now, I'm just wondering, because right now we're still on the slide that says qualify and convert seller leads.
Yeah, your
Oh, it didn't
slides haven't
switch?
changed.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, good.
How's
I
that?
thought mine was frozen.
How's that?
Better, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Oh, so you guys could still see it. I thought when I pushed pause share that it would stop sharing and then it would just be my bobblehead. All right. Well, you just taught me something, Russell. Thank you for saying something. Okay, but any questions in regards to seller leads? So we talked about generating leads. We talked about qualifying the leads. And now we talked about categorizing those leads in hot, warm, core, hot, warm, cold, or ABC. You could also do 1, 2, 3. I mean, we got the Jackson 5 here, so we can just do whatever we want. But you just have to come up with a system that you can rank them hot. I just go with hot, warm, cold. And most CRMs are color coded. So, true to form, if you look at my database, my hot ones are red, my warm ones are like orange or yellow, and my cold ones are light green. So you can choose your colors. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Converting leads to contacts. So this outlines kind of a three-prong approach, three-step cycle. And when you want to convert a lead into a contact, number one, you have to ask for an appointment. I mean, it stands to reason. If you get a lead and you're talking to them, like what Russell and I just talked about, you want to have to ask those questions about why and when. But the whole focus of that conversation, number one, to pre-qualify them, but number two, the next step is to get to have a meeting, right? To have an appointment. Number two, ask for a referral. Maybe they're not ready to move, or maybe they're not, part of the contacts, but the part of the long game, the reason why when I use Dale as an example, that all he has to do is go to bed and wake up in the morning and he gets business, is referral business, right? So anyone know what the percentage rate of what you should be able to convert transaction wise from your database?
6%.
6%. Good one, Duke. So every 100 people you have in your database should equal 6 deals in a direct referral or direct business. Now, 6 transactions in Southern California, the average commission is 20 grand. So if you get your database up to 100 people, and we're talking a solid database. Look, we're not talking about just, taking a page out of the phone book and just transcribing them and just putting them in there. Do they even have phone books anymore? Anyone get phone book? Does anyone get a phone book anymore? I don't got a phone book. But anyways, it's a 6% conversion rate. So do the math. How many transactions you want to do? You want to do 6? Go fill your database up solid with 100 people. You want to do 12? Go fill your database up with a solid 200. Right? Now, here's the thing is that you have to consistently work them. You have to stay in front of them. You have to have the systems. All of you have access to KW Command, and it's good enough for what it's used for. I didn't have nearly what the tools that we have access at our disposal 23 years ago. I think you guys, some of you were on the last training when I told you that I actually had a recipe box and 5x7 cards. And that's how I manage my lead follow-up. I would have numbers 1 through 10 and 1 through 12. And then I had another series of numbers 1 through 30. So depending on where the numbers of months were in there, and then I would put them in a certain day of the month, and I would just have these cards. Nowadays, I don't even do that. I wouldn't even think about doing that nowadays. Like I'm mobile and global nowadays. Ask them to reciprocate the connection that you've made. So you ask for an appointment, you ask for a referral, and then you ask them for an introduction into someone else. That's how you grow, another way to grow your database. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? Pre-qualifying the sellers. So the key here is once you know their why and their when, you've got to pre-qualify them. Well, it's not necessarily knowing their why and their when is pre-qualifying them. But pre-qualifying sellers, number one, look at that. Number one is understand the seller's motivation, knowing their why. Most important thing. Number two, you got to position yourself as an expert. Who here can tell me how you can position yourself as an expert? Here's a tip. I've already given you guys the answer.
Just no more than the average person, I guess.
Knowing more than, well, maybe. I mean, if you met with a home seller, I mean, how do you do that? How do you add credibility?
Just specialize in something, have a niche.
Specialize in something. How do you know that you specialize in something?
Because I think it's
We're going deep,
I go
dude.
with that
We're
rule
going
of thumb
deep.
of, hey, if you know more than the average person, then you're considered an expert. That's how it is
Okay.
in the legal court. I don't know. That's
Okay.
Is it know
So
your
let me ask you this.
customer? Oh,
I show up and I'm just telling you that I'm the expert. Is that going to position myself as the expert?
no.
How many number one agents do you guys get mail from?
Everybody.
Everyone's a number one agent. Okay. So here's the thing. The way that you position yourself as an expert one way, write a book. You ever notice how people who write a book are always the expert? Even if they're not the expert, they write the book. But the way that I always recommend doing that is, and this is going to sound like I'm a broken record. Here's the one thing that you guys will always find with me is that I'm consistent. Preview property, create a video of your experience, create content that your ideal client's going to want to create. I promise you, Matt, you and I were talking about this. If you just focused on that South Irvine area and all you did is know everything about South Irvine and you created videos about every single house that's on the market that has sold in 3-month period of time, you're going to have so many videos that you are the expert because of the amount of content. If you sit down with a seller and you have 300 videos of real estate, of homes that are directly related in their market area versus you sit down with somebody who has none, you're the expert. Would you guys agree with that? I mean, in this day and age, with Google and how powerful Google is and how often we use it and how often we're using search and how often we're using video and YouTube, would you agree that if you're the one who has the most content, then you're probably the one who's and talking about Fei Lee, I mean, Fei is the YouTube guy in his niche. That's the other way that I guess you can go to bed. You can get business just by going to bed and waking up, right? Have a ton of videos that are running 24/7. And that's a good thing. That's one thing I want to highlight, that, the traditional sales activities are analog channels. They only work if you work. But the modern techniques that we talk about, yes, preview and property is an analog channel, but if you create content with the experience and you give information, that is something that's going to run 24/7. And if you do that 100 times, 200 times, 300 times, it might not reveal itself right away, but I promise you, when you create that kind of content, things do start happening. It's inevitable. The hardest thing is just to convince people to start off without and doing the activities without seeing that immediate gratification. Because we all know that we live in a society that it's immediate gratification. You want a hamburger? Call Grubhub. Boom, it's there in like 30 minutes. It's cold. It's wrong. Your fries didn't come with it, but you get it. Allow you to price win the listing. Who would rather, is it better to be popular or is it better to be good? Popular. You can be really, really good. You can be the best at something, but if nobody knows, you're not getting any business. You can be the best real estate agent on planet Earth, but if nobody knows that you're a real estate agent on planet Earth, you're not going to get any business, right? So part of winning the listing is being popular, is making sure you get your content out. And it all ties to the same thing. It all ties to the same activity, is that you have to preview property. You got to preview the property to know the neighborhoods. You got to know the neighborhoods to pitch the neighborhoods. You've got to know to be able to pitch the neighborhoods after you actually find somebody's needs, right? So when you position yourself as the expert by creating content, that's also going to help you win the listing. Raise your hand if you would ever choose the second best agent to sell your house. No one awards the second or the third best agent the listing. Not unless the first one failed, right? Expired listings. So winning the listing starts before you go on the appointment, right? How you frame it up, how you frame your business. Look, when it comes to Keller Williams, you guys have a national brand, but you should be working on your unique value proposition for you so you can tie your own personal brand to the power of that national brand on a local level, right? Because here's the thing. If you are just a general agent that has a general value proposition that's with Keller Williams, then really what you are is vanilla. You need to be able to stand out. And that's part of positioning yourself as the expert. And that's going to help you win the listing. Now, how do you win the listing? Matt, you and I talked about this. What's one of the things that you have to do to win the listing?
Just be the expert, know your client.
Yes, But what I was going for is that you have to be able to present.
Oh, present, yeah.
You
Present.
have to be able to present.
And have the skill
The
set.
only way that you're going to win a listing is if you have an appointment and it's a listing appointment and you're able to present that appointment. How do you get good at presenting?
Practice,
Practice. Practice your presentation.
technical
We'll
stuff.
talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
Number 4, allow you to price the home to sell for the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time. What are the 3 truths that you guys hear me talk about when it comes to sellers? All of them want it.
Money,
They want to sell their home for the most money in the least amount of time with the least amount of hassle. Every single seller is the same. If you ever come across a seller that wants to sell it for the least amount of money in the longest amount of time with as much hassle as you possibly can, run. It's never happened. I'm sure that there's somebody out there that actually wants to do that, but that home's not going to sell. Right? So it's not a good idea. Here's another skill that you have to learn. And you have to learn this, and this is going to tie into previewing property. Pricing property is an art, right? Pricing property is an art. You have to have a technical understanding of it. You have to know how to pull comparables. Write this down. Homes that are within 10 years of each other, the same style of each other, and the closest vicinity. Don't go more than 6 blocks out when you start. Okay. Keep your square foot within 10% of each other, right? So if you have a 2,000 square foot home, you're searching things that are 1,800 square feet up to 2,200 square feet. You're going maybe 5 blocks of radius from where the subject property is, and you're only looking at the same style of home. Now, it's not that hard in Irvine because every single house is in a master plan community. So, I mean, you have like 5 different floor plans to choose from. Just choose one, right? But it gives you an idea. It gives you a structure of the framework. And the way that you're going to be able to know how to price the property is by previewing the property, because you will never find on the MLS, even though they have some pretty terrible pictures on there, you have to accept the fact that those terrible pictures were the best ones that they had. Okay. Nobody puts the worst pictures on there. So the power lines in the back, the neighbor that has the crappy yard, all of that cannot be seen from the MLS. This is only information you can get from walking the neighborhood, right? So when you allow the seller, would you guys think that the seller thinks that their home is worth more than what it actually is, especially in this market, right? The house down the street sold for $1 million. Mine has got to be worth $2 million. Your house is smaller, right? That's what they do. So you have to, again, kind of you have to understand the seller's motivation, position yourself as the expert, present and win the listing, but then you're the one who has to set the price. And this is where objection handling comes in. This is where role playing comes in. And then number 5, properly set the expectations, allowing you to create a great customer experience. Sellers want to sell their home for the most money, least amount of time, with the least amount of hassle. That's what you do in this business. Everything else doesn't matter. They don't care about your service. They just want to sell it fast and for the most money. And they don't care how you do it. They just want the least amount of hassle. They don't want to be, one of the reasons why I really loved working in the default space when it was short sales is that you have a client who doesn't care how much you sell the home for. Awesome. You have a client who doesn't care how much you charge on a commission. Even more awesome. And then you have a client who doesn't want people walking through their house every weekend, nor do they want a sign in the yard. Awesome. They just want it sold and they just want you to solve their problem. And that's where the expert comes in. To properly set the seller's expectations, this has to happen right after you sign the listing agreement, right? And you should have your plan of action. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, right when you hire me to sell your home, this is what's going to happen. We're going to order all the inspections. We're going to get the home photographed within the next week. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And then we're going to make sure that things hit on the market at this time, right? Set those expectations, because the last thing you want to have happen is them calling, not knowing what the heck is going on. Now, that's pre-qualifying the sellers. And I think in the toolkit, let me look, there should be, okay, you're going to go blank for a second, guys. I got to go into my toolkit. Okay, so if you guys are going to mykw.com and you go into the educational side, you're going to be able to download this pre-listing questionnaire. Here's the thing about pre-listing questionnaires. You can be annoying by asking too many questions. The whole key here is not to talk so much that you talk yourself out of a deal. Now, I think pre-listing questionnaires are extremely important. And I think that you always want to make sure that you have it ready. But when you're on the phone and you're going for an appointment, let's say it's a for sale by owner. You don't need to go for a listing appointment for a sale by owner. You want to go for a showing appointment with a for sale by owner so you can have some FaceTime with them so you can actually start asking some questions and you can start building that rapport. But the common questions is, why are you moving? When do you have to move there? What's taking you there? If you're looking, how soon do you have to be there? So there's a lot of different qualifying questions that you have to go through. And you determine on the type of business you want to take. I can promise you guys, there's nothing worse than having no listings than having a listing that's not going to sell. Taking a listing and it's not going to sell. Or taking a listing and it doesn't do anything. Fei Lee was asking me a question about this huge property about whether or not you should take the listing because it was overpriced. And I said, and he told me, and I think you guys saw this on the interview, that for every video he does, he gets like a dozen leads. And I said, well, if you took this listing, do you think you'll generate some leads from it? He goes, absolutely. I said, how many leads do you think you'll get? He says, a dozen. I said, out of those dozen, you think you'll sell 1 or 2 homes? He said, yeah, I'll probably sell 2 homes from it. I said, okay, so you take this listing, you do a video on it, you sell 2 houses. Okay, you don't sell that house, maybe you will, but it's a business decision. Not everything is about taking and selling it. Now, you got to be honest with people. Say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, based on what we're talking about, I believe that your home is worth X amount of dollars, and they say, something else, and then you just say, well, I'll tell you what, I would be open to taking the listing at your price for 2 weeks, but at the end of the 2 weeks, then we need to agree that we need to do a price adjustment. Is that fair? Then say, yeah, it's fair. Now go do your video and do your marketing so you can generate more leads. Right? It's all about business, creating business. Let's go on to the next slide. The listing presentation. Okay, so another thing that you guys are going to hear me say, that there are 2 undeniable truths in sales. Number 1 is nobody has ever gotten good at anything without practice. Ever. Natural ability only takes you so far. But nobody has ever gotten good at anything without practice, and sales is no exception. And number 2 is that you will never perform at a level higher than the level in which you practice. Think about that. When was the last time that you actually performed at a high level that you didn't practice? When did you ever do better than the level of what you practice? It's not possible. So when it comes to the listing presentation, one of the things you can do is you can go into Command and you can go into the designs and you can download certain templates, right? You can download your listing presentation. Now it's up to you to practice that listing presentation. Now, the way that I practice things, I did a training on Sphere of Influence the other day. And it was only about a 10, 15 minute training, but I had to practice that content. Now, I know a lot of this content very well. I know a lot of this content that we're doing right now because I have the experience behind. But if you're going to do a presentation and it's on a listing presentation and you're going to get paid anywhere between $20,000 and $30,000, that's what's on the hook here. Do you think it's better to wing it, or do you think that maybe you should practice it? Practice it, right? Everyone agree with me? Give me thumbs up if you agree with me. Awesome. So here's what I would encourage you guys to do is go get your listing presentation. Present it. Do this. So here's some homework for you guys. Go to the MLS where you live, because you know the area that's best where you live. Pick a house that's on the market. Pick one house that's on the market. And what I want you to do is I want you to create a listing presentation like you're going to sell it, like it's an expired listing. Now, have you guys done any training on how to do a comparative market analysis? How to determine comps? Do you guys have that?
Yeah, we did two of them.
Okay. So here's the deal. Here's the deal. Most of your listing presentation should be boilerplate language, right? I told you the seller wants the most money, least amount of time, sell it with least amount of hassle. Okay. When it comes to a listing presentation, I always send a pre-listing packet. The pre-listing packet has basically my resume, my breakdown of my experience. It could just be an introduction to who you are. It for me, you want to make sure that it has your action plan. If you hire me, this is the services I'm going to do. And guys, don't do everything that just what's on the KW listing. Come up with something that's very unique to you. You know, highlight what makes you special. Like if I was going into production, you know, I've sold 1,000 homes across 26 states, kind of know real estate. That's part of my value proposition. That's part of my experience. So what is it that's actually going to separate you guys from other agents? And that is the stuff that you have to practice, right? You got to practice that listing appointment. Okay. We are now, oh my gosh, this is like, you know, mark this day on your calendar, the day that Brett actually finished on time when it comes to Ignite. All right. Duke, Russell, Laura, Scott, what kind of questions you guys have? What ahas do you guys have? Talk to me. We got 5 minutes. Let's use it. Come on. Come on.
Trying to make a niche. I think it's just the biggest thing is just getting or trying to find almost like your step or your value prop. And kind of like what you said and how you gave the example of Faye, we can't just, you know, hide under the umbrella of being a KW agent. You kind of have to find your own thing. May it be writing a book, a video, you know, just find your own lane in order to kind of create that, because that will distinguish yourself. And I think people will come to you if you can find that. So that's, you know, that's something I'm trying to find my footing too. But I think
Look,
it's
man,
a big thing.
being with KW gives you the street credit. You know, from a consumer standpoint, they don't know who you are, but they know who KW is. And the fact that KW has a good brand means that you must be good, right? So it's branding. Let me ask you guys a question. What is the one thing that got you guys stuck? What is the one thing that right now in front of you that has you guys stuck? That you
Where to
guys
start
need
sometimes.
in order to move forward? What's that?
Where to start sometimes. There's so much. And
Where to
then,
start?
yeah. And then like, you know, for me, it's like, I know what I think I can find my footing, but if you know, if you suck at technology or digital, it's like you just kind of get lost a little bit. Like, how do I even make a damn video? You know?
Okay.
It's one of those things, but just I think really it's just starting. That's the hardest part.
So let me ask you guys this question. Where do you get now business? Like we talked about building your database. That's your long game. There's some now business in there, but where do you get now business? Like business, like in the next is a hot lead. Where do you think that would happen?
Referrals?
Referrals from your database? Yeah, you can get now business from that. But what if you don't have a really big database? Where do you guys think you would do it?
Cold calling,
Cold calling? Cold calling who?
your sphere of influence, and then the neighborhood that you're trying to farm.
Okay. So that could be now business if you find the right person. Okay. Now business, if I were going after now business, number one is you need to start calling the expired listings and start calling the for sale by owners. You have to accept the fact that everybody's calling them. That's just going to happen, right? It's a very contested space. Most people don't stay with it. You guys have met my friend Justin. He calls them daily. He's really good at his game. He was a beginner at first. He started calling expireds when he was new in the business. Now that's gnarly, right? It's rough. I mean, you want to learn real estate, you want to learn listings, work with expired listings, because They have every objection. They had a bad experience. They haven't sold their home. They haven't sold it. They've had hassle. Like it's gnarly, right? Other now business is to, in this day and age, is to, we talked about videos. Duke, I think maybe I need to come up with a class on how to do a video.
Yes.
So I think that'll help you guys out.
Yes.
But create some digital ads. It's not expensive. It's not expensive to run ads. Now, typically, a lot of people have cracked the code on how to get buyer leads. And I was just talking to Matt earlier before this, and I said, man, typically a buyer is 3 times the amount of time just normally. Now, in this environment where you have to show people 10 homes and have to write offers on 10 homes, it's like a 10 multiple. It's like 30 times more, right? That's why you always want to go after the listing. But if you want now business for sale by owners, expired listings, that's now business. You can start creating ads, start niching down, start providing your services. Duke, you're an expert when it comes to taxes and finance. Taxes are coming up. You can start talking about, get your free report on how to maximize your tax benefit from your home. I mean, there's something you can do, something I call to action that can pull. Matt, you come from the investment space. You can talk about values and how they correlate with, the new Biden administration. I don't know. Just start things that your ideal clientele would want to click on, right? There's somebody right now within 5 miles of each of us that they want to sell their home and they haven't selected an agent yet. I'm pretty sure that's a fact, right? Because if we monitor just our 5-mile radius and we look tomorrow, there's going to be new listings that are coming on. Right? So you really need to work on that. And so one of the questions, I guess, why I'm asking you guys this is that, I can teach you, we have a very organized way to teach you the fundamentals, but, me wanting to help you guys, I want to find out where you guys are stuck so we can get it unstuck and moving forward. Now, for me, if I were to go back into production, I never really, after my first 3 or 4 years in the business, I didn't really work a lot of the for sale by owner and expireds. I had enough business going that I didn't need to go after that space. But I've told you guys this all before, is that previewing property and role playing and practicing your presentation skills, being ready do you guys ever hear what the definition of luck is? Opportunity meets preparation equals luck. Right now, you just got to prepare, right? You got to prepare so that you're ready when that opportunity comes. So preparing means to have a 90% of your canned listing packet prepared, have your pre-listing packet prepared, practicing your common objections, practicing the opening script of the phone. That's all about preparation, right? You have to do those activities that's going to generate leads. Now there comes the opportunity. If you're not ready to take a listing appointment right now, then what you're going to do is you're sabotaging yourself on your efforts to generate leads, because subconsciously that if you don't have your listing presentation done, you're not going to be as highly effective on your lead generation. Would you guys agree with that? Like, I know it's true for me. Like, if I'm not ready to do something, the 4 steps before it, it's just not happening. So, okay. Any questions on that? I have an announcement I want to share with you guys. Okay. So starting next week, you guys all know that I have a national role-playing group. Starting next week, I am going to be daily objection handling training from 8:35 in the morning to 8:55. I do that because I have a role-playing group that goes at 8 and I have a role-playing group that goes at 9. So there's a 30-minute time frame that I'm going to be breaking down and doing the objection handling of that daily objection on the phone. Now, because you guys are with Keller Williams Irvine, you guys are going to have full access to that training. But if you guys want to get in onto the actual role playing schedule, which I encourage you guys do, then, talk to me about it and we can work on getting you guys up on that. So that is all I have for you guys today. Do you guys have any questions?
I have one.
All right, guys. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
What's the common issue expires normally say? Like some common problems that they
Usually
don't.
the agent's fault. Why do you think your home hasn't sold? Now the agent didn't do their job, which is true because if the agent did do their job, they would have sold the property. There's only one thing that causes a home to sell, not to sell. It's price. It's the price versus what you get for the price, right? It's the true in everything. If your home will sell at a certain price, right? If you're listed in space, you know your home's not going to sell. The higher the price it is. And what we find in any type of this frenzy market is that if you list your home overpriced, you won't get activity and it will languish on the market, which is contrary to what common sense would think. You would think if homes are selling 2 weeks before they go on the market, that if you list your home overpriced, then it would sell. But what happens is the opposite. If you list it overpriced, what happens is that those buyers aren't even looking at that property, right? Because they know they have to bid up. So the homes that are selling right now are, if you're priced in range with the value of the home, you'll likely get multiple offers. Who just told me? Someone just told me they got 40 offers on a property. Oh gosh, and you get such angry buyer's agents. Buyer's agents all start thinking of start wearing tin hats and start thinking of aliens. They start thinking about conspiracy theories. Agents start calling and saying that the seller, I don't think that you presented my offer to the seller. Well, yeah, I got 40 of them. 39 of them were a higher price than yours. So the way to avoid that is just take listings. But to answer your question, Matt, the main reason why homes don't sell from the perception of the homeowner is the agent and their lack of marketing. But in this day and age, seeing how 90% of the homes sell through the MLS, it has everything to do with price. Price and the condition of the home. Great question. Any other questions, Russell, Laura, Duke, Scott? All right, guys. Did this help you out? Did this add clarity or did it just confuse all you guys even more?
That was good. Thank you.
Okay.
Good.
The focus is taking listings, guys. That's the name of the game. If you guys need anything, let me know. But thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.